Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am so pumped you're hanging out with us today because, honestly, what we're about to look at completely defies logic, physics, and, let's be real, basic personal finance. We're going to dive into the absolute extremes of automotive engineering. We're climbing a price ladder that literally starts at a single dollar bill and goes all the way up to an absolutely mind-blowing $100 million for just one car. Let's get into it.
To put this whole explainer into perspective right off the bat, $250 million. That's the combined sheer total value of the cars we're looking at today. We are talking about $250 million in machinery, carbon fiber, and pure history, all gathered in one place. And we're going to see them driven, tested, and in some cases, pushed right to the absolute edge.
So that brings us to the big question, right? What does $250 million worth of cars actually look like? Like, why on earth do they cost this much? What separates a car you can literally buy with pocket change from one that needs to be insured for the GDP of a small country? Well, we are going to visually break down exactly what you get at every single one of these crazy escalating price tiers. Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, scrap to self-driving. This is where we jump from worthless rust straight up to modern automation.
All right, so we start at the very bottom with a $1 car, and honestly, calling it a rust bucket is being far too generous. It is practically worthless. Get this, just to get the engine to turn over, and smell like burning smoke by the way, required $20,000 in immediate repairs. It's terrifying just to sit inside the thing. But if you bump that budget up to $100,000, you get a Tesla. Suddenly, you've got space for the whole family. But more importantly, you're getting a car that literally switches lanes and drives itself while your hands are totally off the wheel. It's a massive leap in what a car can actually do for you.
So what happens when you double that price? Do you get double the comfort, double the self-driving tech? Well, no, actually. When you step up to the $200,000 mark, the basic rules of utility just get thrown completely out the window. It becomes all about that raw, visceral experience. Enter the Lamborghini.
I absolutely love this quote from our source material. Even though this costs twice as much, it has half as much space. It's so true. At 200 grand, you're literally paying a premium to lose practicality. I mean, you can barely fit in the driver's seat. But what you're actually buying is that incredibly angry engine sound. You're buying terrifying instant speed. You're paying for the undeniable reality that you're basically flying just by barely tapping the gas pedal. You're paying for the thrill, definitely not the cargo space.
Moving right along to Section 2, tanks, boats, and planes. This is where things start completely defying the laws of standard transportation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the utter absurdity of this bracket. For $300,000, you get a military-grade SUV with a literal smokescreen button and explosive-proof armor. Pretty wild, right? Then, step up to $500,000 and you get a car that seamlessly drives right into the ocean and acts like a boat. Add another 100 grand on top of that, and for $600,000, your car has a propeller and can legally fly at 8,000 feet. Let's break down how well these superpowers actually work in the real world.
First up, that $300,000 military SUV. To test out its explosive-proof frame, they set off an actual bomb right next to it. Just to give you some context here, when they blew up normal cars, the blast literally sent the crash test mannequins flying out of the sunroofs. But this tank, it just jumped a tiny bit, took a minor dent to its insanely thick bulletproof windows, and, get this, perfectly protected a stash of Feastables chocolate bars left sitting inside. It is quite literally bomb-proof.
Next, we've got the $500,000 boat car. Now, if you saw this thing on land, you probably wouldn't look twice at it. But drive it straight into the water, press a button until you hear a beep, and boom! Suddenly, you are floating. It is absolutely wild to comprehend that for $500,000, you can drive straight off a beach, start doing donuts to whip up a whirlpool in the ocean, and then actually outrun a traditional boat in a head-to-head race. No way, right? But the real mind vendor of this tier? 8,000. That's the altitude in feet that the $600,000 flying car can reach. It takes off just like an airplane. The wheels leave the tarmac, and suddenly you've got a street-legal car operating over a mile above your head. Honestly, when you think about it, getting a street-legal airplane for 600 grand almost feels like a steal.
Which brings us to Section 3, millions in tech and speed. We are shifting gears into pure power and the future of driving. Once you hit the $1 million tier, you're basically buying pure masculine adrenaline.
We're talking a whole fleet of aggressively loud, gas-guzzling supercars that are perfectly designed to do donuts on a private track at breakneck speeds. But double that money to $2 million? You aren't just buying speed anymore, you are buying the future. You'd be sitting in a one-of-a-kind experimental hydrogen prototype. It's so new that just taking it out on a public road feels like a genuinely terrifying privilege. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer science behind that $2 million price tag. This prototype runs on a hydrogen fuel cell, which completely replaces traditional gas. Even though it's still a developing proof of concept, it actually boasts a staggering 1,000-mile range and a top speed of 221 miles per hour. And the craziest, most futuristic part? Instead of pumping out toxic fumes, the exhaust it exhales is literally drinkable water. This is what extreme wealth actually funds, you guys. Eco-friendly hyper-technology that hasn't even hit the mainstream market yet.
But hey, if it's pure record-breaking speed you're after, you're going to have to add another zero. $10 million. That massive number brings us to the Koenigsegg Vitona, and it is the only one of its kind in existence. This isn't just a car. It is officially the fastest production car on the entire planet.
So how exactly does a $10 million car earn that title? The secret sauce here is air core carbon fiber. It's an ultra-lightweight material that makes the entire frame of this Koenigsegg almost 500 pounds lighter than a standard Lamborghini. When you combine a feather-light body like that with a massive twin-turbocharged V8 engine, you get an experience that's basically like being strapped into a roller coaster. Oh, and factor in that the paint is mixed with literal crushed diamonds? Yeah, suddenly it makes total sense why the insurance companies legally mandate that only the owner is ever allowed to drive it.
All right, let's slow things down a bit for Section 4. Priceless museum masterpieces. This is where cars stop being just vehicles and become real historical artifacts.
A perfect example of this is Jay Leno's McLaren F1. You really have to wrap your head around this mind-boggling economic reality. He bought this car back in 1998 for $800,000. People actually told him he'd never get his money back. Today, it's valued at $20 million. That means, just by sitting in his garage, this car essentially earned him over $1 million a year in appreciation. Plus, it features this highly unusual 3-seat layout where the driver sits directly in the middle. It's just a really quirky design choice that completely adds to its legendary $20 million mystique.
Let's see how this builds, stepping straight into an $80 million museum combo. First, we have a $30 million Ferrari. And this isn't just any vintage Ferrari, it is a one-of-one, built specifically as a gift from the founder of Ferrari to the founder of Ford. Funnily enough, during the test drive in our source material, they pushed it a little too hard and actually stalled it. Beside it, we have a $50 million Jaguar. Its crazy value isn't just about the metal, it's because it was the legendary actor Steve McQueen's actual daily driver. It's the very same car he got so many speeding tickets in that his license actually got suspended. I mean, when you're driving historical artifacts like these, you are terrified of every single pothole on the street.
And finally, we have arrived at the absolute pinnacle of our explainer, the grand finale, $100 million for a single automobile. I mean, it's a number so huge it's genuinely difficult to wrap your head around for something with 4 wheels. But here is the plot twist. If you were expecting some sleek, futuristic spaceship with laser beams, you'd be totally wrong. The $100 million car is this, the world's first Ferrari. It completely defies what we expect a modern hypercar to look like. Its value is derived entirely from its absolute historical purity. This is the literal genesis of one of the most iconic brands in human history. It doesn't just belong in a museum, it is the museum's undisputed crown jewel.
So the crucial point here is understanding the absolute logistical nightmare required to take a $100 million piece of history out into the real world. You don't just put the key in the ignition and go. First, you have to coordinate with local police to completely shut down city roads with an armed escort. Second, you have to hire dedicated street sweepers to scrub every single inch of the planned route. And third, crews actually have to go out and manually fill in every single pothole on the bridge just to make sure not a single bump damages the undercarriage. It's a massive operation. But, once all those logistics are handled, the payoff is just purely magical. When the museum representative, who by the way is the only person on Earth legally allowed to drive it, floored the gas pedal on that closed-off bridge, the awe was palpable. Look at that, $100 million barreling down the street. It is this chaotic, beautiful, and incredibly rare spectacle of history roaring right back to life, even losing a passenger's hat to the wind in the process.
Which brings us to the end of our journey today, and it leaves us with this final, really provocative thought to chew on. When we start at a $1 rusted shell and climb all the way up to a vehicle whose price tag literally surpasses the GDP of a small island nation, what are we actually valuing? Are you paying for the cutting-edge hydrogen engineering, the irreplaceable museum history, or simply the sheer unparalleled spectacle of existing in a league completely of your own? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible ride through the explainer. I really hope you found this breakdown as fascinating as I did. See you guys next time.